Hey everyone, it is Tony Will. I am so excited for you to meet my guest here today on Women In. But before you do that, let me tell you what you're listening to. Women In is a podcast that celebrates women from all walks of life and the people who uplift them. Each episode features incredible voices from my world, sharing stories that spark inspiration, challenge the status quo, and remind us that empowering women empowers everyone. This is a bold, curious, uncensored space where disruption is welcome, forward thinking is encouraged, and change is the goal. I'm passionate about breaking down barriers, not just for us, but for the next generation. Whether our paths cross through the Kalamazoo Wings, Mindfulness Elevated, Tony Will Coaching, or you're part of my family and friends circle, these conversations matter. Let's dive in and celebrate the power of connection, growth, and the people who are shaping our world. And this is a person shaping our world for sure. Liz Coffey is the founded on Leave Experiences in 2024 to help women get re-energized by stepping outside their daily roles. Like many entrepreneurs, she started her business to solve a challenge she faced herself, finding a meaningful path through burnout. With 15 plus years in corporate plus training as a coach, Liz challenges the conventional view that self-care starts and ends with a spa day. Her business curates personalized one-day and weekend experiences across the U.S. that center around wandering, creating, and learning. Liz also leads conversations with women about the roles we play and what we want from our lives. She's been featured in the Chicago Tribune and has contributed to HuffPost on the topic of solo travel. Whether clients are navigating career transitions, new family phases, or craving deeper connection, she helps them discover personalized magic in accessible places. Liz lives in Chicago, in Chicago's West Town neighborhood with her husband, Dan. Hey, Liz.
Hi, Tony. Great to be with you.
It is so awesome to have you as a guest on Women In. So, Liz, tell me, and everyone who's listening, how did we come into each other's lives?
I love how we came into each other's lives because it was through Chief, the network of executive women. And as part of Chief, you have the opportunity to join what they call a core group, which they intend to be like your group of a board of directors for other women. And you and I were placed in the same group. And I still distinctly remember the day we met, our very first core group meeting, when all of us kind of looked around the virtual room and said, we all have something in common here. It feels like there's a reason we were put together. And that reason was that all of us were doing something professionally that really connected to our purpose, our life purpose. We were all in very purpose-driven careers.
Yeah. And so if anyone hasn't heard of Chief, it is, as Liz mentioned, it is a networking group for high level females in the workplace, whether they're entrepreneurs, C-suite. It is something you have to apply to be a part of. And of course, there's a financial commitment. I would call it a substantial financial commitment to be a part of it. And not only do you get this core group, but you get to be invited to all kinds of different webinars, in-person events if you live in a city like Liz does, where there's a Chief headquarters. And so what would you add to my explanation? Because I just ran off the top of my head with it.
Yeah.
How did you find Chief? And if a woman's listening to this and you're like, I haven't heard this either, Tony, go to chief.com. It's and so how did you find it, Liz? And because you're in Chicago, do you go to the Chicago office and check it out?
Chief is such a great group because I know, Tony, a lot of what you do is about trying to bring women together and give women opportunities to learn from each other, share, and also have opportunities to lift each other up and, speak women's names in rooms they're not in. And that is one of, I think, the core principles and ideas behind Chief as well is, hey, let's bring some women together, exactly what you said. Let's provide some programming, but also just give women opportunities to meet each other and find ways to lift each other up. And yes, you're right. I do live in Chicago and there is a Chief Clubhouse in Chicago and I've made some really great connections there.
Yeah, that is cool. So if you're in a bigger city, they have clubhouses in some of the bigger cities. They do not have one in Kalamazoo. So the closest one for me would be Chicago, which is only 2.5 hours from here. But that is how Liz and I came into each other's lives. And I'm a big fan of not only networking, but personal and professional growth. And so as well as lifting women up. So to me, this was like a no-brainer to spend a year in this space. So, and thus far, Liz is the only one in my group that has been on the podcast. So kudos to
Oh,
you.
we've got to get everyone else on there just because it is such a great group. So would love to hear from them too.
I totally agree. So, okay, your bio is just chock full of so many amazing things that I want to dig into. You are an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
And you stepped out of your corporate job after real burnout and launched your business. So I want to talk, if you will walk us backwards to what you were doing, like, give me some career highlights
Yeah.
and then I'd love to hear how you knew you were burned out and then what led you to launching this business. And then we'll go from there. So if you kind of take us back in time to bring us to now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Part of me doesn't want to go back to that burnout mindset, but I understand it's important. It's an important part of this conversation. So I worked in corporate communications for many years. And actually, as part of my role, I specialized in executive communications. So I was the communications partner to CEOs and other C-suite leaders at major companies. In fact, I worked at a number of food companies that are globally recognizable, like McDonald's, Tyson Foods, and Kellogg, which became Kellanova. And as part of those roles, it's fascinating being a communications partner to someone else, because then I often found myself getting into their headspace, because that was part of my role, was to, help counsel them on the best way to message something so others might understand it. But that had me as, at one point, a 32-year-old woman supporting a CEO of a major company, sort of getting into that mindset of a middle-aged man, which is different from who I was at the time. And a lot of this came to a head during the pandemic. I know a lot of us had aha moments during the pandemic, and mine came right outside, actually, the space I'm sitting in right now, where we're doing this podcast, in my dining room, the dining room of my condo in Chicago, where Thanksgiving 2020, my husband and I were having Thanksgiving dinner alone because we weren't able to see other family that year. And actually, funny story, we decided to have Indian food for Thanksgiving because we said, you know what, we're actually not big into cooking, and if we could choose something else aside from turkey, we want Indian food. So we were having Indian food, and actually we had a nice bottle of champagne. We were kind of saying, like, let's make this as special as it can be, despite the challenging circumstances. And I found myself, when it was just my husband and I, no other voices in the room, I had this like out of body experience where I could hear myself talking to him. Mm-hmm. And I could hear that all I could talk about was work and my corporate job. And I think I had just finished my year-end review, and I was telling my husband, I said this in my review, I said that in my review. And when I stepped outside myself, I'm like, this is not even interesting. Why is this the conversation that's coming to mind when we're trying to, have a lovely holiday? And I'm so grateful for my husband. And yet we're having this terrible conversation about my work. Mm-hmm. And that that aha moment spurred me to make a New Year's resolution going into 2021 that I was going to start working with a coach. And that was something I had never done before, had never invested in that. And I made a personal investment in a coach. And her name was Karen, and we started meeting once a week virtually. And Karen changed my life. I mean, talk about women who change our lives and lift us up. Karen is at the top of my list for sure. And one of the first things we did in working together, she had me do an assessment And one of the sort of dynamics that the assessment measured was a self-care index. And on a score of 0 to 100, with 0 being not so great and 100 being really great, I scored a 6. So that was proof, data, evidence that sort of what I was feeling in that Thanksgiving dinner aha moment. There was some data to back that up, that I was not giving myself self-care. And so Karen and I went on a journey of what could I do to care for myself. And, as we started emerging from the pandemic, we started with the more obvious forms of self-care. She was like, Liz, your homework is to go get a massage. And I went to get a massage, and I remember thinking, this is really great for my calf muscles. I'm feeling looser there, but this isn't quite doing for my brain what I needed to do, because I'm laying on this table and I'm continuing to answer emails in my head. So Karen and I sort of continued on this journey of, she'd give me homework to try something, I would try it, we'd sort of analyze what was working, what was not working. And what we found was a great unlock for us was this idea of me going out into the world and having solo experiences. So my husband and I have always loved to travel. Yes, I would do, annual get-togethers with groups of girlfriends, all that sort of stuff. But I was never really doing anything that was specifically for me, and something that was requiring me to be fully present in the moment. And wasn't, frankly, what a lot of us do in our 20s and 30s, bopping around from, a restaurant to another restaurant, but actually doing an experience where I was fully engaged. And there was one weekend in particular, it was in the spring of 2023, when I flew from Chicago to Birmingham, Alabama for a solo weekend. And really the reason I went to Birmingham was that I had never been to the state of Alabama before. And I saw there was a direct flight from Chicago to Birmingham. And I went there and I went on a civil rights journey. I went to a steel mill that is now a national landmark that you can walk around. I did go to a dinner by myself and ended up bringing a book and striking up a conversation with the woman sitting next to me, who was, roughly my age, but in a very different life space, in that she had recently separated from her partner, had a young son, lived somewhere else, but her family was in Birmingham. And so she was just going back to Birmingham for the weekend. But I realized in that conversation with her that this stranger, that I was so fully present and forgot about any of the little worries that were going through my mind about, I got to submit this by this day, I have to do this by this day, and I was present. So on that flight home, I had a couple of realizations. One was having these experiences that are truly for me, that are around things that light me up, like wandering, creating, and learning. That is self-care for me. And then my second thought was, are there any businesses? Is this white space? Because there are so many great businesses out there for women, leading yoga retreats and, some of those hotel spa concepts, and travel groups for women, where maybe it's women, 30 to 50. You can sign up for a slot and you're going to travel somewhere. But is there any sort of business that combines coaching with experiences and helps women uncover an experience they may not have even known they wanted, that might be exactly the thing that lights them up, and then take that stress away of planning it and putting it together and finding a great guide to lead a woman in this endeavor? So I started writing a business plan, and then On Leave Experiences was born.
That is such a cool story. And I remember when one of the number one reasons I love this podcast is I get to drill down and get in the weeds. And I know on our calls, I knew high level what you did, but not how you got there. Okay. So the assessment you took, do you know the name of it?
You know what? I don't know the name of it. I do know that actually I found Karen. It wasn't like I was searching and then I'm like, Karen's my coach. I did sort of a democratized version of coaching and took a quiz through an organization called Better Up and then was paired with Karen. So this was kind of amazing that we ended up being paired together and that she was my initial match. And we could have met once and said, you know what, our energies aren't right. This isn't a good fit. But instead we met once and said, let's keep going, and kept going for 3 years and still keep in touch to this day.
That's awesome. All right, Better Up. I've never heard of it. I'll have to check it out. That's really cool. And that you were paired and it worked, and look where you're at. So if I do my math correctly, Liz, you had your aha moment in 2021, and then you launched your business On Leave Experiences 2024.
Yes, you're right.
So 3 years. So in those 3 years, were you doing your day job and building this business on the side?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And it's fascinating because I think, to your point about sometimes we just know a headline about someone, or there have been many people who are like, wow, that happened overnight. Or, hey, you left your corporate job at the end of 2023 and then boom, 6 weeks later, your business was launched. But of course, there is so much more that's going on behind the scenes. And you're right to call out that aha moment happened Thanksgiving 2020. I started working with Karen in January of 2021. And then it was in the spring of 2023 that I started writing the business plan. So it really took me, even in working with Karen, and we're meeting once a week. But it took us all that time to sort of figure out, okay, what were my goals? And then what steps, classic coaching, what steps would I need to take to get there? And so it was in 2023 that I started writing the business plan. And I had a date circled on my calendar in July of 2023 where I thought, okay, Kellogg is going through a reorganization. We were splitting into 2 companies. And I thought, that particular date in July, if I was going to leave, if I was going to make a go of it, of on leave and go all in, that would be a lovely day to let the executive team know. I knew they were all going to be in Chicago, and that would, set the team up for success going forward. And it was the night before that date that was circled on my calendar that my husband and I were having tacos down the street in West Town. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. I am going to put in my notice tomorrow and go for it with On Leave. So did that and ended up, we worked, I say through the end of the year then, through the end of 2023. And then, so to your point, that last 6 months when I was in corporate, I was doing my corporate job, but I knew I had made that commitment to, I'm leaving. So at the same time, I was continuing to build the business in the background, and even sort of setting up, working with a marketing agency on my website. So that way, some of those things would be ready to go once I was ready to launch.
So how I can picture this, like I'm picturing you and your husband eating tacos and you being like, okay, I'm doing it. And then you did it. And then the pink cloud of that, like the excitement of it. And then is that how it felt? And then was there any terror after?
Yes, especially once I remember when we had the announcement day that I was leaving, that, because for a couple weeks it was just a very small group of us who knew that was what was happening. But once the announcement was out there, and once people were like, oh my gosh, like, sorry to see you go, and also congratulations, I'm like, now I have to do this. Like, once something is out there, and it was, they were kind enough, my business name was in there, like, Liz is starting a business called On Leave Experiences. I'm like, now I really have to do this. So yeah, it was euphoria in a way, and excitement that it was happening, but it was also like, okay, now the pressure's on. Now people are going to hold me accountable for doing this. I need to hold myself accountable.
Yeah. So what was it? How did you go about, you mentioned a couple things. You worked with a marketing agency. So I'm hearing that you were investing in branding.
Yes.
Branding, website. What else were you investing in? And how did you get your first client? What was it like to land your first client?
Yeah, great questions. And you know what? There are so many different schools of thought around sort of how you start up a business and what you prioritize in the beginning. I know many people gave me the advice of why don't you just start doing what you intend for your business to do? And then when you officially launch, then you'll have case studies. But for me, and that is a great solution for many people, a great way to kind of test the waters. For me, I felt like for a couple of reasons, I kind of just needed to like go all in with an official launch and a name and a website. One part of it was that I knew myself and I knew I could not start actually doing the work of the business while I was still in corporate because I was so sort of dedicated to my corporate job. And part of what I did was crisis communications. So if a crisis were to happen, all my energy would have to go that way. And so if I had clients I was already working with and I was needing to cancel things and move things around, I knew that wasn't going to work. And I also had this sense of, okay, there is some interest in what is Liz leaving corporate to do? What is happening here? And I thought there might be a window of time where if I were to come out with a big launch, that those people whose curiosity was piqued, that they would be like, okay, I'm signing up for her emails. I want to be part of this. And that was what happened. So it was neat. You know, that was just such a great exercise in there are different ways to do things. Trust your gut. All of our situations are different. And, you know, I had this gut feeling that, okay, I think we want to come out with something that's exciting and with a true launch and go from there. And then that was how I got my first clients that I held a pre-launch event that was virtual a couple weeks before the launch where it was a conversation about the roles we play as women and, you know, what gives and takes our energy. And then I introduced On Leave Experiences as a potential solution, as a tool in women's toolkits as we're navigating that, and made an offer at the end of the conversation that the first 5 people to reach out to me after this call, you're going to get a special price on your On Leave experience. And I remember putting that offer out there. I actually did not finalize what the offer was going to be and what the price was going to be until about 30 minutes before hopping on the phone. I had like a blank slide that like had no amount of money on it. And like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And a part of me almost like took comfort in thinking, okay, no one's going to know. If no people decide to take me up on the offer, no one will know because I'm saying, oh, email me after. And I remember hanging up the call and feeling energized by the call, feeling like this is a good conversation. These are great women in this call. Like, this is really good. Hanging up the call and being like, okay, is anyone going to email me? Is anyone going to take me up on this offer? And 5 people did. So that was such an amazing moment and such a great confidence booster. To just do the scary thing, put something out there, and you might be really, you know, what you want might happen. And that's what happened.
You hit on something really important here. And as a fellow entrepreneur myself with a day job, but a lot of what I build is literally in the 11th hour. It's not... I think people get stuck and held up from doing what you and I have done because they think they have to have it built perfect and ready with a timeline and a chart and a policy manual and a business plan. Yeah. You don't. You don't. You literally can have a blank slide and type in a few bullet points and make an offer. And if no one accepts the offer, no one else is going to know but you. And then you, as an entrepreneur, you go, okay, that didn't land. So I'm going to, people came to my pre-launch. So what can I do to get people to come back? Like you just start to rework it. Yeah. So tell everyone what comes with On Leave experiences. So what, if someone were to, you'd say, I want to know more about this. Is it, you mentioned coaching, solo travel, wandering. what are
Yeah.
some of the things you offer?
Yeah. And I love what you just shared about too. And this will get into what the offers are, how you have to put something out in the world really to even know what works and what doesn't. And even as I think about when I was writing my business plan, I was having lunches with other women saying, okay, what do you think about this? And getting great advice from them. But the best advice I got was once I launched the business to sort of understand. And once people's real dollars and their time are at stake, that is the best feedback we're possibly going to get, because something could sound nice in theory, but it really is once it's out there as an actual offer, that's when we learn. So when I launched On Leave Experiences, I launched with one product. And that was our signature On Leave weekend, which was essentially the experience that I had created for myself in Birmingham. But what it looks like for clients is that we have a discovery call that's like a coaching call. So instead of it being like talking with a travel agent, and travel agents do great work as well, but different work, where it'd be like, this is what I want, let's make it happen. Instead, the calls with On Leave, I'll ask, okay, you want to take a couple days for yourself. What do you want to get out of that? What's your goal? And from having a coaching like conversation, I learn a little bit more about what they want to get out of the weekend, what they want to feel, and then propose a weekend for them built around that, where they may end up going somewhere they didn't know they wanted to go, that they've never been before. Or like, I love sending people to New York, and a lot of women are like, oh yeah, I go to New York for work all the time. But then this is a very different side of New York that sort of aligns with what they have shared in our discovery call. So that is the offer we started with. But then right after, the other two offers tie into this pre-launch event, that one of the 5 women who emailed me immediately after the pre-launch event, she said, you know what, I have a 2-year-old at home, and, she's working, her husband's working. She's like, I just don't think right now I could get away for a weekend, but I live an hour south of Boston and I could go to Boston for a day. And she's like, would you take on that work? And I'm like, okay, that's really interesting. And that was feedback no one had given me in the business plan, but now an offer is in front of this woman. She's like, can we try this? And we tried it, and it was an amazing success. The day was so great for her. She's come back and done more, what we call the day of you. And as I shared that story with other women, they're like, that's what I want. So today, that and this product being a 1-day product is also highly giftable. And so that is today our best-selling product. And there are many partners buying it for their wives as well. So the day of you is accessible. And then our third product that we have today is what we call Circles. And that is a series of 6 conversations with women that is like the pre-launch event. Because after that pre-launch event, so many women who attended getting really excited about Circles. We just launched another cohort this week, but women who attended kept messaging me and saying, are you going to do that again? That conversation was so lovely. It was great to connect with women I don't already know, do these real talk conversations about the guilt we feel, taking time for ourselves. I felt like not so alone after that conversation. People appreciated hearing from women who were in different life phases. So that conversation series became our third offering.
That is so cool. So when it's do you curate then the second offering, if I'll use me as an example. I call you and I say, Liz, I am 2.5 hours from Chicago. Can you curate an experience for me? And then you build something for me based off my interests. So I don't drink alcohol. As everyone knows, I live alcohol free. I love I love to go shopping. I also love fitness. And then, so do you build an itinerary out? And then, or how does that, am I understanding?
Yeah, you are understanding it mostly right. Except that I think where the difference comes in with On Leave is that instead of going right to your interests in a discovery call, which is second nature for all of us, right? Anytime thinking about working with travel agents, the first thing you do is like, here are the things I like.
Yeah.
Instead of that, I'd say, Tony, you want to take a day for yourself in Chicago. First of all, kudos to you for carving out that time. What do you want to get out of that day? What do you want to feel when the day is over? What do you want to feel? And we'll get into it that way. So it's a different lens in. And usually the first half of our calls, it is more like that. And it's like, how will you know the day has been a success? And then we'll get into some of the more tactful questions, or even things like, do you want a memento from your day? That sometimes people are like, yes, I want something that can sit on my desk that I will look at and it will remind me of this day. So I've got a sort of interesting set of questions that helps us get at what your day might be. And, some people may come in and say, I do want to relax as part of this day, but the fun challenge that I like to give for the people who work with on leave is be open to what that might look like. You may at first think relaxation is a massage, but I've got some cool, tricks up my sleeve, some neat, other great women-owned businesses who I partner with who provide some different kinds of relaxation you might not have thought you wanted. So sort of the idea is that it should be a day that maybe challenges you a little bit, or when you see your itinerary, you say, I wouldn't have thought to do that. Okay, interesting. Let's give it a go.
That is so cool. I would totally agree with you that I have not heard of a business like this. And there is white space, like an opportunity for you to take that white space and color it in. It's very cool. It's very cool. I got to tell you a interesting story too. You don't know this.
Oh, please do.
I was saving this for all this time because I knew you were on the podcast. One of my girlfriends and coworkers sent me a screenshot of some merch from LinkedIn.
Okay.
She goes, this girl's stuff is pretty cool. You know who she sent me a picture of?
Who?
You.
But you're kidding me.
No. She sent me a picture of you.
I love that.
I knew you would love
What was the merch? Which piece was she particularly into?
The hat. There was a hat you had. And she goes, that is so cool. And I'm like, well, yeah, I know Liz. And she goes, how do you know Liz? And I told her about Chief. And
that is amazing.
I was like, yeah, I'm going to. And so I wanted to tell you that on air and surprise you with that because how cool is that?
That is so cool. And that's what's so fun about doing this, right? Like as things spread and people find out about things. That is awesome. That has made my day. So thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah. So do you have merch? Do you still have that merch? And can people go
We
buy
do.
it?
Yes. So we have an online on-leave shop on our website. And we do have a couple of hats that have been very popular. One that says, not a spa person. And I have found I really enjoy wearing that hat around as I'm being an ambassador for my business because it always sparks interesting conversation. And the other hat says, experiences over things. And that one, I think, has been our best-selling hat because that's such a part of On Leave's philosophy and of many women's philosophies. Yeah. This idea of like, the real juice, the real great stuff is in the experiences we have rather than the things that we have. So that's really special that she liked that. And I did partner with another women-owned business who I met through various networking events on the merch. So Go to Market Studio is the name of the business, and Amanda is the founder, and she is wonderful, and her team's so creative. It was a really collaborative process to get to what the merch is.
Yeah, it was not a spa person or not. That's
awesome.
Yeah. So I was like,
that is awesome.
It was so cool. I was like, yeah, I know her. And she was like, no way. And I'm like, yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I know. That is so cool. So I wanted to share that with you and surprise you with that because I know how hard you were working. And I specifically remember you being on one of our coaching calls as a group, and you were, I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but you were like, I don't know how to promote my merch without looking, you didn't, these are my language, without
Yeah.
looking like a douchebag. Cause you're like, cause you were doing a girls trip or something and you're like, do I wear?
Yes.
Yes. And I was like, and you were so, all of us wanted to be coached, which is why we're in that group, but you took the
Yeah.
feedback and then she said that to me. I was like, oh my God, it was so cool that you were like, you just took it by the balls and you're like, I'm wearing it and posting
Yeah,
about
yeah. Oh my gosh, you're right. And I had forgotten all about that. So thank you for reminding me about that. That conversation we had was right when I had the mock-ups for my merch, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm gonna, do an express order on this hat so I can wear it on the trip. Yeah, you are exactly right. And everyone did give me such phenomenal
it.
advice. So that's why having a group of women board of directors is so valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, good for you. What an amazing story of courage and creativity and execution, like bringing this to life for women. I think it is. I think it is so cool. And so, speaking of women, who are the women in your life, Liz, that really have been foundational in shaping the woman that sits before me today?
Yeah, I mean, Karen, my coach, gosh, so talk about someone who I was paired with after taking a quiz who ended up being, one of my greatest confidants for 3 years, and beyond now. Can't say enough wonderful things about her. And, starting a business, you know this as an entrepreneur, that we really need other women around us to lift us up and to say our name in rooms that we're not in. And some of my dear friends, some professional connections from my corporate days, and women I've met through Chief and other networking. I mean, there are so many of them who have done just that and have, been such great ambassadors for what I'm building. That's like my heart and soul out in the world. And I'm so grateful for that. Have an endless amount of gratitude because none of us can build anything alone, especially when we're just starting out, because no one knows and we don't have endless resources for marketing and things like that. So we need people to share and to tell others. And I have so many friends who've done that, and one comes to mind right away to get specific. My friend Nicole, who I met years ago training for marathons, and you know this as an athlete that if you're training with someone, and especially when you're marathon training, you have to talk to pass the miles. And so
Yep.
we got really close really fast, and she is just that person who shows up for me in a friend capacity and shows up for my business being like, hey, let's get together this weekend. Do you want to go scout an experience? I'll do it with you. And, has gifted on leave to people. And even last weekend, I was in Pittsburgh for the weekend, and Nicole took a flight in for the day to hang out with me and to, experience things. So just really comes to mind as just an amazing friend. And we all need friends like that and people like that in our lives and as we're building our businesses.
That is so cool. What great women. And I love
Yeah.
that you had a coach, not just because part of my side hustle right now or what I'm growing is coaching, lifestyle coaching and professional development coaching, but I have a coach too because our coaches can help see what we can't see because we're in the forest,
Yes.
we can't see. And so
Yes.
I am a huge fan of getting coached. And it's such a gift we can give to ourselves. And like you
Oh,
said, you invested your own money in it. It's not
yeah.
expensive, but
No.
if you are serious about growing and getting outside your comfort zone and trying new
Yeah.
things and learning who you are
Yes.
and really living a fulfilled life, get a coach.
Absolutely. And even, my husband's a great partner, so I used to share a lot with him. But me getting a coach then also made my marriage better because I wasn't dumping everything on him. He was a great thought partner, but that was taking up space in our lives that I was dumping everything on him. So even if for those of us who sometimes feel like, oh, we have people like that in our lives, getting someone who is outside of our normal orbit, who is maybe not someone who we're interacting with every day. Wow. Like once you realize the weight that takes off of and the pressure it takes off of other relationships and just that that truly different perspective from someone who, yeah, isn't in the weeds with you every day. Agree with you wholeheartedly that coaching is such a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. So, I named this podcast "Women in dot dot dot" because originally it started from my sports background, but where I'm working today because I'm a minority in men's professional hockey, and I'm continuing to lift women up in professional sports or sports in general. It doesn't have to be professional; it can be collegiate too. But then I'm like, hang on a minute. No, we women, we have multiple identities, multiple spaces. And I wanted to open it up to men and women, inclusivity. Men came from women. The word men is in women. Anyways, long way around. But I want to know for you, how do you fill in those three dots? Women in dot, dot, dot. What would you say? How would that be for you, Liz?
Yeah. I mean, I think part of women in entrepreneurship, lifting each other up, trying to partner together and all of that. Women in coaching, we were just talking about coaching that, it's so valuable and wonderful to be connected to other women who are also working in coaching, that we can, help each other that way. And gosh, yeah, just women who are women in wanting to be interested and engaged and all of that sort of stuff, right? Wanting that personal growth in addition to the professional growth, wanting to be lifelong learners, wanting to, just that curiosity, women in curiosity. Maybe that's the right way to put it. That, oh my gosh, being part of a group of women who are curious is a really wonderful thing.
Yeah, that is so cool. I love women in curiosity. That's good. I've gotten some great answers in this. I've got women in weird, women in just some great
women in weird. That's great.
I know that was one of my favorites. But women in curiosity is a good one too. What are you reading? Any books? Do you like to read? So if you are,
I do like to read.
All right, what are you reading right now?
I do like to read, and I often like to read, I'd say my favorite kind of books are really poignant fiction. So books that are, they're not like the real life memoir of someone, but they're written in a way where they have this phenomenal, like these universal truths where you read them, or like just truths about the human experience. And then that ends up being almost a better learning sometimes than nonfiction could ever be. And one book that comes to mind, I think it's about a year old, I think it came out last year, was The Wedding People, that I read recently. And it was about a woman who was at a transition point in her life, a really challenging point. And she goes to this hotel she had always wanted to visit in Rhode Island. And it turns out she is the only guest there. She somehow got a room where everyone else is part of a wedding party and she is not. And the way that she gets to know the people, through these wedding events that she just so happens to be in proximity to, and the way they get to know her, like her life changes in the course of this week. And it was such a powerful book with so many poignant moments where I was like, oh my gosh, like that's exactly what this feels like. Or yes. And it was a lot of, because it was a wedding, multi-generational people talking to each other and having conversations. And there is so much beauty in multi-generational women sort of sharing and it goes both ways, right? It's not just learning from people who have more life experience than us. It is also learning from people who haven't been around as long and maybe haven't been jaded in certain ways or whatever that is. And I just thought that book did such a wonderful job of just so many poignant moments where it made me stop and think. And I love that fiction can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I wrote it down. It's going on my list. I'm excited. I will read that because I read my age every year. I think I told you ladies that if I didn't.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Which is talk about being a lifelong learner and continually curious. Reading is awesome for that.
Yeah. And I read both fiction and nonfiction. I listen to half the books I read. I probably right now have 6 books going and I'm not a speed reader, but I haven't anyway. So, and it's some of it, like, I'll admit this, I was, what I'm reading right now, I drove home from Indy early this morning because I was at a conference all week. And I decided I'm judging myself.
What's coming here?
I know this. I'm reading Christine Brown's Sister Wife book.
Okay, all right. How's it going for you?
I thought it's interesting. I watch Sister Wives. I've watched all the
Okay.
seasons. I'm not interested in polygamy at all in terms of my own lifestyle choice. I'm like, why am I reading this? But it's interesting.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
Yeah.
I guess I need something. Well, I shouldn't say mindless because I don't want to offend. If Chris,
Yeah.
if you llisten to my podcast, don't be offended. I'm sure she
You'd
won't.
love her on as a guest. Yeah.
I would. Come on. I'd love to promote your book. Oh my God. Okay.
Love that.
One more question. What have you changed your mind about lately?
Oh, that is a great question. I love that. And one of the first things that comes to mind, and this is going to sound like a silly thing, but I think there's something a little bit more behind it. I would have always said, so even going back to when we're talking about when someone asks you what your interests are, you automatically have answers, but there might be something else you didn't know you loved. And for me, art has been that way. I did not think of myself as an artsy person, as a creator myself. I did not, if I were going to New York for a weekend, going to art museums for, 38, 40 years would not have been what I would do. But I started challenging myself through On Leave to have experiences that I wouldn't have picked for myself. And I have found that I love a great art museum. And, I was recently at the Andy Warhol Museum in Pittsburgh and just thought it was so brilliant. 7 floors of, Andy Warhol's story. And I love how a good art museum has the opportunity to tell a story. In how the curators decide to exhibit things. Those stories can be so powerful. So even just the words that are on the wall, not the actual art that's on the wall, but the words, that can be so powerful. And then the pieces themselves, both the ones that have an accepted interpretation and ones that are open to our interpretation. And that was something I didn't know I loved. And now that I do seek out, now I would tell you, if you asked me what I'm interested in, I would say art. That's cool. And that's just such a neat, again, it sounds almost like silly and simplistic, but it just represents that, like, we continue to grow and evolve, and let's be open to that sort of stuff, as I know you absolutely are. Let's be open to that, and we might be surprised by what it is that really lights us up that we didn't know would light us up.
That is so cool. I love that. That is a great, I try not to rate my guest's answer, but that is a really good one. That is a great one. Kudos to you. Now, everyone else who's going to be a guest on my podcast, you got to.
This becomes a case study. Wow, that's an honor. From having listened, being a listener of your podcast, that is an honor.
Oh. Well, this has been such a pleasure to have you as a guest, and I love what you have brought to our world in the space for women and self-care and redefining that and coloring in that white space. So, congratulations. It's an honor to be in your sphere and have you as a guest. So, Liz, where can people find you if they want to connect and get their own On Leave experience or gift it to someone or be part of your group circles? Where do they find you?
Yeah. And first of all, thank you. It's an honor to be on your podcast and that we have been able, to your point, to go a little deeper in this conversation. But if people want to find me, you can find me. I am active on LinkedIn, Liz Coffey, coffee like the drink, but spelled differently, EY. Instagram at On Leave Experiences. And then our website is onleaveexperiences.com. And we also have on there one of the great surprises and pleasures of launching this business. I've been doing a weekly newsletter that you can sign up for on our website. And that is something I didn't even want to do a newsletter in the beginning. I was like, oh, we all already get so many emails. But then now 2 years into writing these newsletters once a week, I love writing them. They energize me, and people continue to open them and appreciate them and engage with me on it. So it's a great way to sort of get into the On Leave orbit to sign up for the newsletters. Would love to have you.
That's fantastic. Thank you again for coming on, and I just can't wait to see what's next for you. So, and thanks for lifting women up in the work that you do and taking care of us, because Lord knows there's a lot expected of us ladies, especially us ladies that want to have it all. So,
Yeah, there sure is. There sure is. Thanks, Tony.
my pleasure. I am not hard to find either. Kalamazoo Wings for that side of my life and the hockey's at kwings.com. And then anything else related to coaching, TEDx, my book coming out next year in Q1. What else am I doing? My podcast, Empower Her. My conference 2026 is happening March 6th and 7th. Tickets have already gone on sale by the time this airs. So everything can be found there at tonywill.com. And until next time.